Being able to film a scene at night is fundamental if you want to expand your storytelling and filmmaking spectrum. Just imagine if The Dark Knight was filmed all during the day, or if they had to stop the production of John Wick because it got too dark. Those movies thrived in the dark. These are movies that look and feel the way they do because of where and when they were filmed. It's not just big blockbusters you can ask this question to though. As a filmmaker, with any film shot to look like Night, I found myself asking the question, how did they do it? So in this video, I'm creating 2 shots made to look like they were filmed in Hollywood. My personal favorite is this shot right here, the way that the hair light bounces. Hair lights don't bounce, silly. My personal favorite is this shot right here, the way that the hair light bounces everywhere. My personal favorite is this shot right here, the way that the light bounces everywhere, the hair lights that I have in the room, and even the way that I use moonlights in this shot. It's just fantastic. I love it so much. This shot, however, is also really good. I love the way that I used a window in this shot without even having a window light, by creating my own window, which I'll show you how to do in just a second. I think I'm going to do that one first, and then I'm going to go back and do my favorite shot second, in my opinion, saving the best for last. Let's get into it. I want a cookie break. That was exhausting. The first thing to do was extremely important, and every single filmmaker needs to know exactly how to do this one thing so that way you can set up the shot. Pick up the pizza. It's gross, and it was probably really old. Then, after that, get an empty pot of water, okay? It has to be empty, and you set it down on the stove. Occasionally stir it, and then lick the spoon every once in a while. After that, you know you finished it. Voiceover Jesse here, and the first actual thing that I did was get this before shot of what everything looked like before my lighting. This will show you can see what the shot looked like before doing anything, so just the ceiling lights. The first actual thing that I did was get my own light out and set it up. That way I can use it as a fill light and turn off the ugly ceiling lights. After I set it up, this is what the shot looks like. It honestly works for a standalone shot, however the idea is we're doing a night shot, so I want to take it one step further. I turned down my light to about 8%, and then I set up my bi-colored light as the stove light. This is because the stove light was actually too cool of a light, so the color temperature was too cool, and I wanted it to be warmer. I'll explain more why in a second, however, just know I added my own light as a stove light because I wanted it to be a warmer color temperature. I tucked it in between the grease trap thingy, and that way the light was still pointed on me. Okay, so after that, look at this wall. What's wrong with it? Well, it's boring, you silly Billy. I had to do something to change that. That's why I had to set up some kind of a light to act as the moonlight on that wall. Now, originally I tried to add a blue gel to it, however, it looked kind of like a cooked Smurf, so I knew that wasn't really going to cut it. So after I took the blue gel out, I knew that I had to do something to make that light look more like moonlight, because if it's too warm, then moonlight isn't warm, so that wouldn't have worked. So what I ended up doing was turning the light to go as cool as I could to about 6400 Kelvin. Then I took the stove light, the bicolor light that I used, and I made that as warm as I could get it. After that, I turned the white balance down on my camera, so that way the moonlight looked more blue like moonlight, and then the super orange light of the stove looked less orange. That way it kind of evened out a little bit, and I think it worked really well. So after staring at that moonlight for a little bit, I realized I didn't like how it looked. I wanted to do something to make it different, to make it a little bit better. So that's when I got the idea to actually make my own window. So I ended up taking a little piece of like paper cardboard and I cut a window shape out of that. Then I took that little window shape and then I taped it to a spatula, and then I taped the spatula to my light. That way the light shone through the little window that I made, and it made that shot look a lot more beautiful because it put the window on the wall, and I think that worked really well. One thing I love about filmmaking is that it's not just about the kind of gear that you have. I think it's also about the creative solutions when you're dealing with a problem. That's what makes a filmmaker really great, when they can look at a problem and say, okay, I may have the money for this or I may not, however the solution is going to be something creative, and the more that you find creative solutions, the better of a filmmaker you're going to get. So then after setting all of that up and finding the perfect angle for the window light, because I did kind of have to walk around a little bit before I found an angle that I liked for the window, after doing all of that, this was the final shot. For the second shot, there were a couple things that I knew I wanted while going into this. First of all, I knew I wanted to have several plants in the shot. I just love plants, especially if they're in the foreground or background, and I think that they add a lot to the shot. The other thing is that I looked at this window right there, and I knew that I wanted to have moonlight coming through that window. So I definitely knew that I wanted to do that. The other thing was I already planned out that I wanted to have a lamp in the shot, and then I wanted to have the lamp be the main motivation for the light, and then have another light off screen. So those were kind of the 3 things that I knew that I wanted to do while going into the shot. There were tons of big windows, which meant that there were lots and lots of room for natural light, which I always love to do. My first step was to plug in the haze machine. So the first thing that I have to do is take my beautiful haze machine and hook it up in the background. Now I want to add haze in the background here and not in the front here because the camera's over there, and I want haze to be in the background behind me because I want the haze to diffuse everything behind me and not be in front of me as much. After the haze machine was plugged in, my next step was to make enough space for my camera and lights because it was a teeny tiny bit crowded. After that, I set up the frame. Okay, now I know I want the camera to be right about here. So first I have to move these chairs out of the way to kind of have more space to work with. Sometimes when you're working with smaller space, it can get really chaotic. So it helps to move everything out as much as you can to know exactly what kind of space you're working with. Okay, so the first thing I see is this light is definitely way too bright. So I'm gonna fix that. Also, I want to add the lamp as soon as I can because I want this light to be motivated by this lamp. Meaning when you look at the shot and you see all this light on me and you see the lamp, your brain kind of says, oh, okay, the lamp is what's causing that light. Even though in actuality, when I turn the light off and I turn the lamp on, the lamp isn't actually gonna be lighting me up that much. So I actually ended up not using the Amaranth light and instead using this tiny little light right here that's bicolored and then the actual lamp, and that actually turned out really fine. That's kind of what I love about filmmaking, the fact that you can change things last minute until you find a shot that you like and you don't have to stick with your first gut or your first instinct. I think that's always really cool. Okay, so taking a break from lighting my face, I'm gonna go ahead and move around some of the plants in the background a little bit to kind of figure out what I like. I think all I'm really gonna do is take this plant right here and then put it kind of behind me. Now when the moonlight is shining through here, it's gonna hit this plant right here. And I think that's gonna look pretty good. Now I can go ahead and add the moonlight. Adding the spotlight for the moon was really easy as well. I just took my small rig spotlight and then I put that outside the window pointing down. Okay, so right here is the window that I'm talking about. And luckily there's an outlet right here conveniently. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this, plug it in, and then move it on. Okay, now I'm not gonna be able to know the exact angle until I put the haze in so I can see kind of how the beam looks. However, with the way that I think I have it set up, I'm pretty sure this is gonna be a pretty good angle. So I'm gonna go ahead and go inside now, turn all the lights off and see what this looks like. It wasn't great. It was on like 20% or something low like that, so it really didn't light me up much at all. So I ended up taking it and turning it up to about 100%, and then that actually turned out really well. It lit me up perfectly. It was here that I decided to try out the normal light, and that was absolutely a great idea. Not only did it make color grading a lot easier, however, it also gave me that realistic moonlit vibe, and I'll explain more what I mean by that in a second. Okay, so one idea I have is, one reason why I'm kind of iffy about how this looks right now is because I have the moonlight hitting me, which is kind of cool, but this light is also kind of cool, and it doesn't look different enough, so that doesn't look like moonlight. Now, when I add the haze, that may change. However, I have this bulb, which it's kind of an ugly yellow color. However, it is warmer than this bulb right here. So I'm gonna replace this bulb and see if just with this and then this light right here, if this is gonna look better than with the cool light. So I'm currently holding this light right here on the back of this lamp, right where the bulb is, just to kind of add more light. So I'm gonna hold this here for a second and see how this looks, and I may keep the orange light. Okay, so I didn't like how that looked. I think the reason was because my camera was set to 5600 Kelvin. However, this light was no longer 5600 Kelvin, so I turned it way down to 4200 Kelvin. Now this did two things. Because it is a much higher number, the higher the number, the more blue it's going to be. So this light is much more blue now. Now that is great because moonlight is usually represented by blue light in movies. Another thing that did was make this orange light much less orange. So now if I turn these lights back on, this is still at 2500 Kelvin. I like this a lot better. I can't see it completely because my monitor is pretty far away. However, I'm gonna hold this for a second, look at it, and I may be getting really close to finishing up this Hollywood style look. After that, I needed a place to hide my second little light. I couldn't tape it on the lamp, and I also didn't have a C-stand, so I couldn't hang it up there, so there really was only one other option. That's right! Take another plant, put it in the foreground, and shove it in the leaves. Okay guys, so here's the setup that I have going on right now. First of all, I have this lamp, which is actually adding a lot of light onto me. Next up, I have this little light right here. Now something really cool that I did with that is I actually tucked it in the plant that I moved here. So it kind of fits in perfectly, it's adding light, and it's in a really practical place because I couldn't really find a place to put the light. So I have those two color temperatures at a really warm colored light. Now I also have that light over there acting as the moonlight. Now that light is at, I think, 6500 Kelvin, which is really cool. However, it's not enough to be blue. The issue with all of this is these lights were way too warm if my camera was set to 5600 Kelvin, and that light was also too warm if my camera was set to 5600 Kelvin. So I turned my camera down to 4200 Kelvin for the white balance. What that did was made the moonlight a lot more blue, which you can kind of see on my shoulder, and if I cover up this light and this light right here, you can see it's a lot more blue, which is perfect because it's moonlight. Turning the white balance on my camera down also meant that these lights were a lot less warm. Now I want them to be warm, however they were like a borderline orange, and that really didn't look good. So changing the white balance of my camera way down really helped with this. Okay, so with everything pretty much done, there really was only two things left to do. One, I wanted a book to read in this shot, and two, I wanted haze. So let's go tackle that. This one. Yes. the book has been grabbed. Now I have to take this and we're gonna add the haze. Okay, I did not add a lot. Okay, it looks like I added a bunch, but I really didn't. Now, we're gonna fan this kind of around. And believe you me, we fanned away. After countless minutes of countless fanning maneuvers, we finally got the haze diffused, and this was the final shot. And there you go, a beautiful Hollywood-style cinematic shot. I had so much fun making this, and I really enjoyed it too. If you want to see me light a YouTube desk shot, then click right here. And if you want to see me light another movie setup, then click right here. With all of that out of the way, I hope you guys have a blessed day or night, and I will see you guys later. Bye.